worth, productive land, and it's important to the identity of the Shire. Agricultural production, and I guess we've talked a lot about what that means. Sorry, can everyone hear me all right? I feel like I'm... Is it okay? Thank you. What I find interesting is that this has already been through SAT, this particular proposal. A decision was made. It seems like, again, we're considering it. I'm not quite sure how many times it can go through SAT. It feels like a decision was made, an outcome was achieved, a compromise was arranged at. It was useful to look at the RAR and look at other areas for comparison in terms of what ancillary actually might mean. For instance, if we look at Voyager Estate, it has a 140-seat restaurant where it's located, and there are 18 hectares just on site of productive vines. And we know, of course, that Voyager has a number of other vineyards in the Shire. That's interesting when you look at what the proponent's asking for of 200 seats, open for a longer period of time with 5 hectares of vines. Quite a different distinction. Again, if you look at Xanadu, on the site that Xanadu has there, they have a 180 to 200 seat restaurant. Just at that site are 32 hectares of productive vines. Something we were looking at Glenarty Road, that has 50 seats, so 50-seat restaurant with 10 hectares of vineyards, productive, and a very productive, if we've been there, kitchen garden that actually supplies the restaurant. So we can see here that what's been asked for isn't in keeping, or it's not consistent with other operations in our area, and it's not low impact tourism. So I again commend the officer's recommendation to you.
Thank you, Councillor Muir. Councillor Keno, do you wish to speak? Does anyone wish to speak against this recommendation? No, but then councillors will put that to the vote. All those in favour of this RAR, that is carried unanimously. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is 11.2.5, Scheme Amendment number 80 to Local Planning Scheme 1. So, councillors, we have a recommendation. Do I have a councillor to move that recommendation as written? Councillor Muir, do I have a seconder to that? For that one, that's Councillor Daff. Thank you. Councillor Muir, do you wish to speak to this?
Yes, I do. Thank you. Yes, I do. Thank you, President. And I would also like to move an amendment to this as well, if that's possible.
Okay. Okay, Councillor Muir, we've got the amendment there in front of us. Do I have a seconder for that amendment? Councillor Daff. Okay. Councillor Muir, do you wish to speak to that amendment?
Thank you. As was outlined by the proponent, I recognise the need to encourage small business and innovation. Having had a small business myself and trying to expand to food manufacture when you have a very small budget, I think, and making that expensive leap to actually being able to produce something it's really hard, and I think anything that we can do to encourage that next step is really important. And I can see how having a caretaker dwelling on site would definitely help, and it would add a whole lot of vibrancy to the industrial area. We have a number of successes in our area of different types of businesses, and I want to see that happen. I want to see that happen here. Very recently, actually, I was speaking to the owners and instigators of Gath helmets, which are now across the world, and they started here in our industrial area. And I just think that's fantastic. That's what we want to see and encourage. So I really think this is a great opportunity to allow that diversity and different business. And I also think the incidental retail activity is important to encourage that diversity and vibrancy. So I commend this to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Dath, do you wish to speak to that amendment?
Yes, thank you. I agree with Councillor Muir on all the points she made. Just one tiny little add, I think the idea of bringing retail to all parts of the industrial area just help not just the businesses diversifies, but also gives our public and our community access to retail components of that's something that might have just been business to business. And therefore, you know, we keep that money in our local economy, which is really important.
Okay, do I have a councillor to speak against this amendment? I'll speak against this amendment. So, councillors, I can't move this motion. I have great concern around introducing caretakers' dwellings in our newest, most strategic industrial area for the future of our shire. I see the potential for there to be significant issues in the land use conflict in regards to the ability for 17 lots to have potentially 34 people, if there's 2 people per lot living, or not more families. I see this new industrial area as a significant opportunity for a variety of new and potentially innovative industries that we don't even really know about yet. So, you know, clearly we've got buffer zones and different zonings of industrial use within this industrial area, and that has had significant input and work gone into it to determine the appropriateness, and I really don't feel comfortable in introducing caretakers' dwellings into an industrial zone. I've seen issues in other areas, such as in Quarrup and other shires. So whilst I completely understand the ability it gives for an industrial landowner to have that presence for security, obviously for affordability, I really do understand those reasons. But again, as a strategic planning decision maker, I don't feel comfortable with this amendment, and therefore I can't support it, sorry. Do I have a councillor to speak for this amendment?
I have a procedural question, President, if that's all right.
Sorry, a question or a procedural motion question?
I can ask
Okay, you haven't spoken, so yep,
thanks, yeah.
Sure, yep.
Yeah, no, I'm not speaking to it at this point. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 points which have all been combined together into the one proposed amendment. If we wanted to split this proposed amendment up so that we consider the first 3 and then the last point separately, is that possible, or would I need to foreshadow moving one of those points?
Yeah, I'm getting advice that, I'll just clarify that advice. Okay, councillors, with the consent of the mover and seconder, it can be removed and treated as a separate amendment, but it's up to the mover and seconder. So, okay, so yep, okay, so the mover and seconder are happy to just be dealing with point 2, 3, and 4 and the modifications. That's good. Okay. Okay, so so we'll go back to the 3 components, the modification 2, 3, and 4, which I'm asking if there is a councillor to speak for that amendment, the caretakers' dwelling components 2, 3, and 4. Councillor Keno.
Yeah, I support that amendment. I think it just makes a lot of sense to me. We've got an industrial area that's happening quite removed from everybody else. There'll be a lot of equipment, there'll be a lot of things happening over there. This just puts a new layer of security in having people there on site. It also gives the ability for people that are there to report incidents whether that's hooning or fires, things like that. It just becomes a bit of an extra layer of security over there. I think it's really important also that we give people an opportunity to establish a business and live on site. Most of my life I've lived on site and worked at the same place. I'm not going to lie, it's rather nice now not having to live on site, lock the door and go home. But that's how we got our business started. That's how we were there to make sure that we got all of the work done, we could work long hours and just achieve and get to where we got to. So I think that's really important. We talk about affordable housing, we talk about trying to help people out, and this is just a simple little thing that we can do. At the end of the day, if we don't do this, people are just going to wheel a caravan in there and we're not going to know about it anyway. So I'd rather see us, allocate some area that is specifically for this. I know there are certainly some people up in the industrial area in Quaramup that live there legally that nobody even knows. In Bunbury, our mechanic lives on site. He lives behind locked gates. You don't even know that anybody's there, but there is somebody there. I just think this is just a really important, it's simple, it's not the whole area, it's a small designated area that's separate from everything else, and I really encourage councillors to support this because I think that it's something that we can be doing to help new start-up businesses and help them get off the ground and establish themselves.
Thank you, Councillor Keno. Do I have a councillor to speak against this modification? Councillor Binks.
Thank you, Shire President. And councillors, for me, I am uncomfortable in the introduction of any residential component in a light industrial area or in an industrial area. I think security is the responsibility of the owner or the lessee. I'm also concerned about being consistent in my decision making. We have just dealt with an item in which it would have been inconsistent for us to approve a development in a hamlet that was going to send it outside the boundaries, and here we are, we're, changing the rules for something under the guise of affordable housing. It's hardly appropriate to house a family in an industrial area. I have big issues with that, and there's the duty of care that may exist, but I cannot see that it is appropriate at all to have residential or caretakers' residences in the industrial area. The other point we're considering separately, so I oppose those 3 points at this juncture.
Okay, are there any other councillors that wish to speak for this amendment? Therefore, Councillor Muir, would you like a right of reply?
Thank you. A number of important points have being put forward. I think it's worth noting that the proponents suggested the most expensive part of this whole development is the initial stages, and that there is some need to ensure that there's buyer certainty, and having some form of caretaker dwelling, which would not be the size of a family home. We're certainly not advocating for families being in this area. And it's a light buffer zone, so it's 17 lots. It's a small, I guess, recognition, I guess, of where we're at. So I do think having a small caretaker dwelling that only occurs when the business is happening is fair enough. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Muir. So we'll just put this amendment to the vote. All those in favour? That's carried 5-2. Okay, was there another amendment that a councillor wished to propose for this motion? Councillor
Sure,
Binks?
I'm prepared. I'd like to amend with that point 5 as it is being provided on the screen.
Okay, so that component that we removed from the previous amendment in regards to the retail activity, so modification 5 is the amendment that we can now consider. So Councillor Binks, you have moved this amendment, and Councillor Muir to second that. Okay, so councillors, just to be clear, this is to add a modification in RU 17B and RU 17C, that retail activity is limited to that which is clearly incidental to the primary land use occurring on the site. So councillor Binks, do you wish to speak to this amendment?
Yeah, just briefly, because Councillor Muir spoke to it so eloquently before. I think that it's entirely appropriate to have an incidental retail activity taking place so that a business owner and producer can sell their wares. So, yeah, I think this is a good amendment.
Thank you, councillor Binks. Councillor Muir, do you wish to speak?
No, thank you. I think I've said enough.
Are there any councillors that wish to speak against this amendment? Okay, councillors, we'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Okay, now becomes part of the primary motion with the additional other component. So councillors, we have a primary motion, which is obviously considering this scheme amendment with these changes. So, councillor Muir, you moved an amendment at the beginning of this process. So, would you like to speak to this? Or okay, councillor Dath, would you like to speak to this? Okay, anyone wish to speak against this item? We'll put that to the vote, councillors. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Okay, councillors, we now move on to item 11.3.1, which is the list of payments for July 2024. We have a recommendation. Do I have a councillor to move that as written? Councillor Keno, thank you, and a seconder. Councillor Muir. Do you have any, would you like to speak to this? Okay, councillor Muir. Let's put that to the vote, councillors. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. 11.3.2 is our financial activity statement for June 2024, the end of the financial year. Councillors, we have an officer's recommendation. Do I have a councillor to move that as written? Councillor Keno and a seconder. Councillor Muir, do you wish to speak to it? Councillor Muir? We'll put that to the vote, councillors. All those in favour? That's carried 7-0, thank you. We'll now move into sustainable economy and communities items, councillors. And we have item 11.4.1, a review of the community, economic, environmental and events funding policy. Do I have a councillor to move the recommendation as written? Councillor Dath. And do I have a seconder? Councillor Muir. Councillor Dath.
Yes, I'd like to move this motion with a couple of amendments.
Okay, so we've got amendments that have been provided to Claire. So councillors, in front of us we have this amendment. So do I have a seconder for this amendment? Councillor Muir? Okay. Right, so Councillor Dath, would you like to speak to this amendment?
Would anyone like me to read them out, or you're all happy to have them on your screens? Yeah. Okay, so the reason we've brought forward these amendments is just to reflect the historical changes that were made in the last review, just so that they weren't lost, and to make this policy as flexible and equitable as possible, but also to have really strong accountability for ratepayers' money. We also strongly support the grants officer, but we don't want this to come at the expense of the community group's access to funds. So I do applaud all the work that went into this. This was a great a report that came back from the administration, but just with these few amendments, I feel we've reached a really good spot with it.
Sorry, Councillor Dath, I think... Sorry, I'm just going to adjourn the meeting for just a second. Thank you, sorry. There was just a copying and pasting issue. So our minutes officers this was the previous amendment that you have moved, but there was a couple missing there, I think. But can you confirm that, Councillor Dath? So the amendment that was provided previously had what was on the screen was just missing F and G. So if you just want to maybe read that out, Councillor Dath, to ensure council. Yeah, so it's on the screen there now.
Yeah, so
sorry, it had just dropped off on the copy and pasting when the minutes officer just put it onto the screen there. So
I think should I just read out that whole?
yeah, I think that might be
Yeah,
beneficial for council to ensure that they know what amendment you're talking about. So yes, please.
Okay, so we would like to adopt the policy, but with these following amendments. So number 1, the wording follows to be added with these amendments. The wording community partnerships, advocacy and community development be omitted and replaced with community partnerships, sustainable economies and community development. That then in table 1, the funding pool figure of 100 for community development and events be omitted and replaced with the figure 150. That the table in the table 1, the following wording be added to the description for community development events, 50,000 per annum be reserved for funding pool for town sites activation events or town site. The following words be added under subheading application. The Chief Executive Officer may approve applicants made under this policy for the amounts up to 10,000. That in table 1, following words added to note 4, grants that are awarded over 12 months are indexed yearly with CPI. That in table 1, the funding pool figures of 90 for sustainable economies and community development be omitted and replaced with the figure 130,000. And that in table 1, community advance easy grants be added into a stream funding with a funding pool of 30,000. And then point 2, that the following add as a point 2 for the recommendation that we request the CEO report to council at the next ordinary council meeting on the formation of a committee to approve funding applications over 10,000, and that the following being added to point 3 of the recommendation notes the consideration of funding for the grants officer will take place at the mid-year budget review.
Thank you, Councillor Dath. So, sorry, I interrupted your speech before because
it's okay.
Yeah, so carry on.
Yeah, and I hadn't picked that up, so that was
okay,
good.
Thank you.
Did you want me to go through those points individually, or I think some other councillors can probably talk to them as well.
Yeah, you can speak to the amendment how you wish, but yeah, thank you.
I think I covered most of it that I was going to say, so we can come back.
Thank you, Councillor Dath. Councillor Muir, do you wish to speak to this amendment?
Thank you. I think this has taken a lot of time, and I again like to thank the officers for their hard work and all of our thinking about this. Grants are one of the most significant investments we make with our community, and we've really recognised that the small community groups and the groups across the environment, recreation, social services are the backbone of what happens here. As a regional area, we rely so much on our community, and it's essential that we support them. Every dollar that we give to a community group, they leverage against other grants, and they actually use it incredibly efficiently. And I think that's what we've tried to do by ensuring that we're indexing what they get, so every year it is in line with CPI. We've also carefully thought about still providing easy grants so that small groups can get that quick funding that they need to make things happen. And I'm really looking forward to a grants officer, because we all know sometimes to get a grant, it's actually just about being a good grants writer. And if we can build that capacity in our community, they will get more money. And I think it comes back to, again, what we're trying to do is get more money for our community. So this is a great start. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Muir. Do I have a councillor to speak against this amendment? Or for?
I'm sorry, I have another question.
Yeah, sure. Go for it.
We are currently considering the amendment, which is number 1, points A through G. Is that correct?
Yes, and 2 and 3, yep.
Are we doing it all together? Right. I would like to request, therefore, that we consider point D of 1 and 2 and 3 separately.
Okay, so that would have to be at the councillor that moved its discretion and the seconder. So you can either permit that or not. So what would you like to do, Councillor Dath?
I would like to test my motion first.
Okay. All right, so we'll go back to the amendment. Do I have a councillor that wishes to speak against this amendment?
I'm going to have to ask another question.
Okay, I permit that. That's okay.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry if this is confusing.
Okay.
My question is, given that Councillor Dath wishes to test this entire amendment, if it fails, can any of the points, separate points in this, be reconsidered as subsequent amendments?
In the event it fails, correct, components of this amendment can be considered.
Yep.
Okay.
All right, I'd like to speak against the amendment.
Okay, go for it.
Thank you. Councillors, the reason I'm speaking against the amendment, and unfortunately I have to speak against the whole amendment in this case, is because there are a couple of little things in it that I consider should not be included in this policy. Those points are, everything else I support thoroughly. The points specifically are point D, in which the CEO is limited to being able to award amounts of up to beyond $10,000. Is that correct? Up to 10. Yes. So the CEO is delegated to make decisions, approve applications for amounts up to 10,000, but not over. Okay. And the other one is point 2, which refers to council requesting the CEO to report on the implications of forming a committee to approve funding applications over 10,000. So they're kind of tied in together. Now, the reason I'm opposed to this is because our job as councillors is to create policy. And our policy needs to be robust and it needs to be directive so that our staff can do their job with confidence, knowing what they can do. It is not our role to wag the tail of the dog. It's not our role to make these decisions once we have established policy and done what the council should do. So we should be taking a long-term, big picture look at things and saying, yes, these are the elements that we need to have in a grants policy, and we need the staff to understand what the implications are and what their guidelines are. Otherwise, we create something in which we as council start making decisions that our capable staff should be making and should be clear for them to make. So I support the rest of it thoroughly, but I firmly believe that when we make policy, it should be robust and it should be capable of providing the direction that our CEO needs in order to fulfil the wishes of the council. So that's why I would oppose this entire amendment, and I would perhaps foreshadow moving the some of the other items should council agree with me.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Binks. Do I have a councillor to speak for this amendment? I'll speak for this amendment. So, councillors, I just guess reminding everyone that we are actually establishing policy. We're reviewing our policy that we have had a few issues with over the past, those that have been on council or not, in the community or not. There have been a few issues, and I actually think this is one of our most important policies that guides our decisions and guides our staff on decision making. We are so invested in building capacity and resilience and capability within our community organisations. And thank you, Councillor Dath. I see these amendments as really respecting that. In regards to Councillor Binks's concern around delegation and robustness and directiveness, I guess I just want to remind us all that, we have a role to play, and I feel that by delegating the CEO up to 10,000, that's going to be great. There's so many small grants that come through that are going to be guided by robust policy that we're going to establish today, and clearly direct the CEO to direct those funds under the framework and the guidelines that support that policy. So I'm really confident that this is a good decision of Council, and I'm really interested to see the formation of a committee that will help Council make those decisions for those larger amounts that can have such an impact within our community. And really, I think, you only know what you know, and there are a lot of other local governments that have way smaller amounts of delegation authority to the CEO, and a lot more input into that decision-making process. And I think if Council has really clear policy and guidelines and frameworks that uphold that policy, then it's certainly a move in the right direction. And after all, we have to defend this policy out in the community, and it is a really important one for all of our various community groups. So I'm fully supportive of this. Just finally, on the last point, the grants officer, I see that as a really great, I think it's necessary for not only the organisation but also us providing that support to the community groups to leverage funding wherever available. So I'm really pleased to see that we will consider that in the mid-year budget review, which is really just around the corner. So this is a really positive amendment. So thank you. I commend you to support it. So is there a councillor to speak against this item, this amendment? If not, Councillor Dath, would you like right of reply on this amendment?
Yeah, just thank you. I'll just reiterate basically what Shire President Meldrum has said, that this is about kind of coming to the nice middle ground. I think in the past history, it's gone too far to council and then it's gone too far to staff. So we're just trying to find that comfortable balance in the middle where there's enough funds available in smaller amounts that staff can act quickly and have the delegative authority on them. But just when we're looking at the larger amounts that we do as councillors, we do have an accountability for ratepayers' money. So for me, this is a comfortable middle ground. And I think Shire President Meldrum said as well, this is quite common practice. $10,000 is actually, there's a lot more local governments out there that have lower amounts. There's not many that have more than this amount. So I'm really comfortable where we landed with this.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Dath. So councillors will put this amendment to the vote. All those in favour? That's carried 6-1. So now that becomes a part of the primary motion. So we'll just get that up on the screen. Okay, folks, so that's effectively reflecting those components of that amendment. So we have a primary motion that Council adopts the policy with those amendments incorporated. Councillor Dath, do you wish to speak again to this? Councillor Muir? Okay, is there anyone who wishes to speak against this? If not, we'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? That's carried 6-1. Okay, councillors, we now move on to the 11.4.2 item. This is the club night lights, and we've had a disclosure of interest, impartiality interest from Councillor Boland, which I've received in writing. Thank you, Councillor Boland. So we have an officer recommendation there. Do I have a councillor to move that as written? Yep, Councillor Keno and Councillor Muir to second. Councillor Keno. Councillor Muir? Okay, if there's no one that wishes to speak against that, we'll put that to the vote. All those in favour, councillors? That's carried 7-0. Thank you. We now move to item 11.4.3, which is the establishment of an advocacy committee. So, councillors, we have an officer's recommendation there, but we need to complete this recommendation before we can move and second it, as we need to consider 4B and filling the 3 places of councillor names, and also point 4C, which is a deputy member. So I'd like to call for some names to fill those places. So Councillor Muir and Councillor Dath and Councillor Keno. Are there any other nominations? Okay, so we can enter those names in 4B. And then in 4C, we have one position for a deputy member for this advocacy committee. Do I have a councillor who wishes to nominate for that position? Councillor Boland. Okay, if there's no other nominations. No, okay, then those are now tied into the officer's recommendation, as we can see on the screen. So now, councillors, do I have someone to move that motion? Councillor Muir. And do I have a seconder? Councillor Binks. Thank you, Councillor Muir.
Thank you. I'm really excited to see the establishment of this committee. We have really been working hard this year, and I see one of my strongest roles is to stand up for our community. The state and federal governments are not acting where we need it, and we need to ensure that the services do not stop at Bunbury. Our local national park need more than a handful of rangers who are mostly on fire duties in summer, peak tourism season. I want to develop a concerted and strategic advocacy plan to get money back into our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Muir. Councillor Binks.
No, I'm happy. Tracy spoke it very well.
Yes, she did. Thank you. Are there any councillors that wish to speak against this motion or for this motion? No? Okay, councillors, we'll put this to the vote. All those in favour? That is carried 7-0 unanimously. Thank you. We shall now move on to item 12, motions from members of which previous notice has been given, and there are none. So we move to item 13, motions for consideration at the next meeting. There are none. We do not have any urgent business as far as I'm aware of. And also no confidential business. So we now close the meeting at 3:31. Thank you all for your participation. Thank you.